Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to Sama Saturday. Thank you so much for being here. We'll take it a little slow here in the beginning to allow some of you to jump on. And do let us know as you're tuning in that you're here and who you're with. We see some of your beautiful comments already. We're so happy to be sharing this experience together today. So welcome to Sama Saturday. It's Sama Dog's weekly or monthly rather show that is all about holistic wellness and health for canines and for all of our animal companion friends. My name is Amanda. I'm the founder of Sama Dog. And Sama Dog is where we provide education and inspiration for living a healthy, natural, and spiritual life with your dogs. We are all about the foundation of Ayurveda, the timeless holistic healing system. And today is a particularly special show. As mentioned, we're all very excited about this as it touches most of us quite deeply. Mm-hmm. Just the thought of our beloved pets either passing away or that they will someday be leaving us absolutely wrenches our hearts. Mm-hmm. And it ends up being something that none of us want to talk about, let alone even think about. And however, it is so important because unfortunately, and the reality is that all of us will face this one day. Every loving pet parent will, if you haven't already. So in the wise words of one of our guests, who's here with us today, Libby, from her post yesterday, she wrote, "The relationship that we have with our pets is something that is unlike anything else. It's the beautiful, pets offer us unconditional love, and often when our pet dies, it opens the gateway to grieving. Mm-hmm. We find ourselves grieving not only the loss of our beloved companion, but many other losses as well. And so it's for these important reasons and how I know we all feel, even the response that we've gotten from many of you just when we said we were going to share today was really important and really powerful and deep. And so this is exactly why we wanted to do this today, because we understand the overall need and understanding for support in this area and for help for people, for resources to help you through these difficult times. And this conversation can be just a starting point for that for all of us. So we are joined today by 3 guest experts and beautiful souls, women that I absolutely love and cherish. So I will briefly introduce each and then we'll get to sharing more. So Dr. Katie Kangas, most of you probably are familiar with. She is our co-host and an outstanding holistic veterinarian, one of the best in the world. I have given her that official title because she truly is. She runs a beautiful clinic here in San Diego called the Integrative Veterinary Care. And with over 25 years of experience, Dr. Katie has seen countless families through this process of illness or aging and then loss and the grief of their beloved companions. And then we also have the beloved Libby Carsonson with us. Hello, Lib.
Hello, Amanda.
She is a grief recovery specialist, a coach, and a speaker who specializes in loss. She's the founder of Liberated Coaching. She is an exceptional Kundalini yoga instructor and has been one of my closest friends for almost 15 years. Can you even believe it?
I can't believe it.
It's been incredible to watch you, Libby, grow in your Dharma, evolve, and touch so many lives. It's been quite a journey together, and you inspire me every day.
Same. Thank you.
And we hold it together a little bit longer on this experience. Deep breaths, deep breaths. It's totally okay. I'm giving everyone permission, including myself, to go and let their emotions flow today, because that's what it's all about. I'm already prepared. And then we have the wonderful Sarah Bowen. Hello there, Sarah. Thank you for being here.
Hi, Amanda.
Such a special soul. And what Sarah does is she's a faculty member at One Spirit Interfaith Seminary and a fierce advocate for all creatures. I love that. As an animal chaplain, isn't that cool? She teaches interspecies mindfulness practices, works with humans around grief and loss of companion animals, loves up on animals in shelters, and provides wildlife struck by cars a sacred send-off. Sarah's writing regularly appears on spiritualityandhealth.com, where she is doing a Sama Dog feature soon. Very exciting. And she is the author of this award-winning book that I absolutely love called Spiritual Rebel, a positively addictive guide to finding deeper perspective and higher purpose. And what I especially love, the book is amazing, and so is that water bottle that you sent me, Sarah. I use that every day with my spiritual little logo on there. And you have
Perfect.
such great stuff, but that's a very deeply interesting book, and your background and your work is incredible. So thank you all again for being here. Lots of love from my heart, and on behalf of everyone that's watching and everyone that will watch this in the future, we are very grateful for all that you share with the world and that you involve the companion animals and touch their lives as well so deeply. So you can see that we are in for a great show, everyone. We invite you all to please keep commenting, sharing, ask your questions. We will have time. We'll sprinkle in some questions throughout as they come up, as our speakers are sharing, but then we'll definitely have time before we finish up to address as many as we possibly can. And just right now, if you will, take a moment to share this and give us some thumbs up or a heart and interact with us in that way, because you know how this all works, and that's how we get it out there in the social media realm, get it out in this web across the world, so that we can be this resource for so many. Imagine people that don't have any touch point to this and yet are in grief and are suffering in their own world and in their own hearts and in their lives. So we are here to help. We'll have tons of tools for them, so please help us to get this out there, and we thank you so much for that. All right, ladies, so I'd love to hear a little bit from each of you first. And what the question is, and we'll just kind of go around, is what have you noticed in your work specifically recently with all that's happening in our world around aging, illness, loss, and grief? So, Dr. Katie, why don't you go first?
So what have I noticed in this sector? Well, of course, anybody who has known or seen me speak before knows that I focus on integrative and holistic medicine. And of course, that encompasses so many things with health, including, mind, body, spirit, all being involved in holistic body health. So aging is something that I am very passionate about, graceful aging and supporting healthy aging. So that comes into my practice a lot in my day-to-day work with my patients. And of course, many of the patients that come to me are experiencing health conditions that have to do with aging. And so that's something that I focus on a lot. And there are a lot of things that I can incorporate and empower pet parents to be able to use to support their pets through this process. But I really enjoy helping them also be mindful of their emotions around this and how they're supporting their pet. So I love this topic today because I really bring that in to my discussions with my clients a lot, and it makes such a big difference for everyone in the household, the family, the human family and the pet family, when people have, first of all, a little more confidence that they have some resources, that they know what to do. And second of all, more of a perspective of what can really make a difference, not only with physical pieces of health, but the whole emotional support and other little nuances that you can do to support them through healthy aging or a more graceful transition. So.
Beautiful. Libby, what about you? What are you noticing being so specialized in this work at such a troubling time?
Yeah. So the work that I do around grief is really helping people to navigate loss. And it's interesting, before I got into this work, I thought, death of a human was like the only loss that was legitimate in terms of grieving. And what I found is that, there's over 43 different types of loss. Pet loss is one of them. It's also one of the losses that is both minimized and invalidated. It's like we feel that, like, oh, it's not okay that I'm grieving my pet as much as I am a human. And where I come from, and this is really interesting, and I want you all to think about this, and this is part of the message that I'm bringing forth right now in such a great time of uncertainty, where not only are we grieving, the losses of our normal routine, the way that we used to work, many of us, unemployed, like there's so many different types of loss of safety, loss of control, loss of trust. And so when I'm working with clients, one of the first things that I ask is, tell me about the first loss that you remember encountering, as a kid. And I would say almost 100% of the time, it's the loss of a pet. And what is so powerful, and the reason I share this, because it has a lot to do with how we are navigating uncertainty and change right now. Because what we learned about pet loss and losing that pet as a child, observing our parents and our family, what they taught us about loss, determines really how we navigate change as adults. So, for example, if you were taught, and I'll give my story here because I was actually into adulthood. I grew up on a farm in Iowa. I had hundreds of pets. In fact, even before our time here together, I was making a list of all the pets that I've lost. And I had kind of a tribe of cats, which had like the little orange kind of patch here. So we named Ginger. So there was like Ginger, the original, but then there was like Ginger 1 through 13. And it was like just this lineage of cats that kept coming, in the same way with dogs. And my first loss, and I got into this work after the death of my father, which was devastating. It was a traumatic death, a traumatic loss. And so as I started to uncover this work and think back to the very first loss, which was all of a sudden one day, our 2 dogs, Byron and Harold, were gone. They were just missing. And I remember asking my parents about it and not really getting much information back. And then my sister and I were out playing, and we were underneath these big, like evergreen trees, and we found Byron and Harold. And first of all, I was like so confused, like, should I tell my parents? Like we've, been looking for these dogs. And then there was something deeper within me that was like, no, this is actually something that I need to do on my own. So the grieve alone, which is one of the myths around grief, which is also, I like this session because it really is about giving us permission to grieve, is that if we learn to grieve alone as a kid, like our emotions were too much for the adults around us, then it makes total sense as, whether it's a pet loss or, you're caring for an aging pet, that it would make sense for you to do this alone because it wasn't necessarily safe to do it in support, which is why I'm so grateful to Amanda and Sama Dog for having this conversation, because your loss and the anticipation of this loss is valid. Giving yourself permission to really grieve, giving yourself permission to know that whatever you're feeling is natural and normal for you, and not to compare the way that you grieve with anybody else. In fact, I think a lot of us are like, when we're so ill prepared for loss, and when we get there and we arrive, it's like, I want to be the perfect griever. Grief is messy. In fact, it's a dismantling. And the final thing that I want to share is that, the myths around grieve alone or don't feel bad, and our friends also ill prepared for loss. So the information they usually give to us as we're navigating the heartbreak over a pet is intellectually accurate, emotionally useless. Because while the physical relationship of the pet has ended, the emotional one continues. So the replacing the loss, where people are like, just get another dog, just get another animal. But our relationship was not with this new animal, it was with the other one. And I'm going to give you some tools in our session today on how you can really honor and deliver some of those undelivered communications that arise at the time that we lose a pet. So for me, learning about grief started with what happened that day, finding Byron and Harold, and then just the deep unconditional love for pets and what they bring to us in life, they also bring to us in their death. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Transformational.
Well said. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Sarah, what have you started to notice, or not started, but been noticing in your work?
Yeah, I'm going to start with 3 words. Yoga pants, Ben & Jerry's non-dairy ice cream, and our pets. That's how I'm spending the pandemic, a lot of it, right? And we are home, right? You too, Amanda, right? And probably some of those of you who are listening right now. And so this is confusing too for some of our older pets, right? We're not doing what we're normally doing. We're doing other things. We're in their space in different ways than we haven't been before. And so there's a lot right now, I think, about, how do we live together in lockdown, right? That's one thing I'm noticing. The other thing is when people have animals, pets, dogs, cats, whatever you have in your home, that has a problem right now or becomes ill or sick, just popping over to the vet isn't the same experience, right? It really isn't. And how the difficult work of people like Dr. Katie, right, in making this a safe experience. And how do we wrestle with, we may not be able to be in the room. I had a pet who had to go to the vet 2 weeks ago, and I couldn't be in the room with them to support them, to care for them, to do what I need to do. And then the third thing I would say is, if we lose a pet right now, right, there are different things happening in terms of our access to honoring their body, right? It's a lot of work that I do, and we'll talk about a little later about how we do that, how we honor our pets' lives and their deaths. Also, if we want to get together with people for support, well, that looks a little different now too. I'm going to talk about something called the furry wake, which I like and is Zoomable. And also, I think the last thing I want to just tee up here is us recognizing that it's okay for us to talk about our grief around animal loss in the midst of an environment of a lot of people loss, right? We are animals too. Humans are animals. And there's a lot of loss right now, but sometimes we can feel like, I'm not sure that I can talk about the loss of my dog when so-and-so just lost their son. Right, so how do we navigate that? And we'll get into that a little later too, but I might run off and talk about it now. I'll just wrap it up and hand it back over to Amanda.
Thank you, Sarah. That's beautiful. And we're excited to hear more from all of you. And so let's carry forth. Yes, we do have a little bit of a buzz on the line. So we have been working on
Pick that up.
Yeah. No.
Is that better?
So Dr. Katie, yeah, she just mute yourself. I can talk about it. She just mute herself. Except for when she's talking, we will have a little bit of that buzz. We tried to work it out, everyone, before we got on. Apologies for that. Okay. So, Dr. Katie, we are going to turn it over to you, and we'll ask you to first share with us, for anybody that's new to meeting you, a little bit about your background and why you love what you do. And then what I thought would be great to share with this audience are 5 of your natural healing tools that support senior, ill, kind of end-of-life situations that you recommend with your patients. There we go.
Hopefully you're not hearing too much of a buzz. I'm not sure what's
I know, it's funny. We'll work on it, but it's okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. You're okay? Okay. So I'll start out by saying that I really enjoy what I do because of the impact that I get to see and experience with my patients and my clients on a daily basis. I truly love going to work to do the work that I do, helping people find solutions for their pets that expand beyond the norm of what we've all come to, accept and expect with Western, medical care. And Western medical care certainly has its, strengths and applications when there's an urgent situation going on. But there are so many other things that we can do for our pets and ourselves that expand beyond what most people's mindsets are with traditional, medical care the way it has been. And so I love to empower people with lots of options that are more natural for healing and supporting health and total well-being. And that includes, as I said, mind, body, spirit, along with the body's health. So I really enjoy what I do. And one other aspect that makes my work extremely rewarding is the fact that so many people, the pet parents that come to me, also experience these improvements for themselves and other human family members. So I get really excited when people continually tell me that they indeed are getting healthier physically and sometimes also emotionally and mentally with the work that we're doing with their pet then applies to them as well. And obviously when your pet's happier and healthier, you're happier and healthier. But a lot of these things people take directly for themselves and get to use and apply to. And I love that. So love what I do. And again, as I mentioned before, I work with a lot of aging pets, and there's even a whole sector in Western medicine now called anti-aging. Well, a lot of natural healing is, really applies to that, which is really wonderful. So I certainly do have tools that I like to do that are, really detailed hands-on tools that I can tell you about. And of course, nutrition is going to be in that category of things that we can do to support pets to have a healthier time of aging and end of life, period for them. So again, talking about nutrition, which is my passion and where I always start, food is like the most important thing we can do to support at least the, biochemistry of the body. A lot of other things come into play with, emotional health and things, but food is critically important. And so the number one thing that I recommend for all patients, and especially aging patients, is a fresh food diet. It is important to make sure that it's balanced. And it doesn't have to be balanced every single meal, but it needs to be balanced over time. But switching a pet from processed food to fresh food diet makes an enormous difference in their vitality, in their energy level, in their mood, everything. So it is a fun thing to see when pets come to me, especially in their older years, and they're on processed food, and we switch them to a fresh food diet, and it's like, second wind. People, get so much pleasure in seeing that. So that's wonderful. I'll mention two very strategic foods that I like to recommend. And I can also ask Amanda to post a link to my list of what I like to call medicinal or power foods that are very easy to add into your pet's dish on a routine basis, regardless of what the mainstay of their diet is, that you will profoundly impact their health, their vitality, and well-being. Two of those that are very worthy of mentioning for older pets especially, two of my favorite foods are bone broth and raw dairy. And if people aren't aware of the applications or the benefits of bone broth, and I like to call it a healing potion. There's so many things that it does for the body, but specifically for aging pets, it is helping to keep muscle mass up and strength. It's helping to keep joints and tendons and ligaments stronger and more resilient. It's helping brain health. It's helping gut health. So bone broth is and it's very easy to lap up. I mean, if these pets are sort of either weak or their appetite's not good or, something like that, bone broth tends to be a very easy thing to consume and flavorful, and dogs love it. And it gives a lot of benefits to the body. So that's a wonderful medicinal food. Second food that I really like is raw dairy. And most people know I'm a big fan of the Answers brand. And actually I have a little demo right here because my dog drinks this every morning. But raw dairy is fantastic, and especially if it's fermented like the Answers, because then you get the support of the microbiome, which is very critical in brain health and mood support, as well as immune system and everything else going on in the body. So fermented is always good. But I want to give people a really neat information piece about raw dairy that most people probably don't know. And raw milk, or kefir, which is nutritionally equivalent, as long as it's not been heated or pasteurized, raw milk has been dubbed the most complete food on the planet. It has every nutrient that the body needs in it: vitamins, enzymes, amino acids, which are the building blocks of protein. All of that exists in raw milk. Now, as soon as it's heated or pasteurized, that changes. And then those nutrients are not viable, and it becomes allergenic because the enzymes that you needed to break down, the milk proteins are not there. So that's why a lot of people think dairy is allergenic. Well, it is. Pasteurized dairy often is for themselves or their pets, but raw dairy is completely different. So the notable thing about raw dairy for elderly pets, or really anybody, is that not only is it a complete food, so if your pet likes this is a fantastic liquid meal where they can get nutrient dense without even having to masticate and eat solid food. a raw milk meal is actually more nutritious than most solid foods that most pets are eating. So that's really wonderful. The other thing to realize is that when milk is in its raw form, the proteins, the amino acids, need no breakdown. They're ready to go. They're ready to assimilate into the muscle tissues in the body. And so the body gets wonderful protein that takes no metabolic effort, and it takes no kidney effort to excrete the byproducts of the protein breakdown. So one of the things that a lot of, which is really, misinformation to a large extent, a lot of veterinarians tell people, oh, you have an older pet, you should feed a low protein diet, a senior diet that has less protein because it's going to be helpful for their kidneys. Well, pets need their protein, but they need high quality protein. And the vast majority of traditional pet food diets, especially kibble and dry food, have very low quality protein. It takes a lot of effort for the body to metabolize and excrete the byproducts through the, or the breakdown products through the kidneys. And it does take a toll on the kidneys when they're eating poor quality protein. The thing with raw milk is it's on the other end of the spectrum of, good quality protein, fresh meats. Milk is like one of the easiest things for the body to assimilate with no workload on the kidneys to excrete, because the amino acids are already free. There's no breakdown and no extra excretion needed. The other thing that I like to explain to people is it makes sense that Mother Nature would have designed a food for babies, because all mammals on the planet survive on nothing but raw milk in the critical growth stages of their life, right? So they need that energy very accessible. You don't want to steal energy from a baby. They need their energy. So feeding them something that is very assimilatable into the body makes good sense. Well, then when you have an aging pet, you don't want to steal energy from them either. They need all of their energy. So it makes beautiful sense to feed a raw dairy or something that is that accessible to a pet that's aging as well, okay? So that's the, I'm so sorry for the background noise. So that's the skinny on the food. Then the next couple of things that I want to show you real quick is I actually did print out a couple of things too, if that's helpful. But a couple more tools that I really like for aging pets is a vitamin B12 or a B complex. So this adds a lot of energy to the body as well. And so anybody who's aging or anybody who has a chronic disease condition or lower energy or anything like that can oftentimes very much benefit from a vitamin B supplement. And a lot of people have heard humans oftentimes get vitamin B12 shots. Pets do too, by the way. But as we age, we generally are absorbing less of these things, through our intestinal absorption. And so oftentimes older pets or people become more depleted in vitamin B and other similar nutrients. But this one particularly helps to give energy to the cells, use that to create energy in the cells for more healing, more tissue repair, but better well-being and mental clarity and just vitality. So when you give a vitamin B supplement to a pet on a daily basis, they should really have a higher vitality and an overall better well-being. And so actually I'll just have Amanda post a couple of the products that I really like that are easy to get, because I had a little visual on some of those. So I'll have her post that. That'll be easier. And then my final thing that I can mention too is for a lot of aging pets, a nice plant medicine to be considering for them. There's numerous that I could talk about, but an easy one to bring up today would be some sort of a CBD product, okay? And as a California veterinarian, oddly, I am not able to dispense that from my practice. So and veterinarians in other states can, but for us, I love to refer all of my clients or anybody who's interested in using a CBD product for their pet to a qualified cannabis consultant, and her name is Robin Lynn, and she's appeared with Amanda before and us on Samadog. And so Amanda can put her information and her links. She's at 1 Minute Cannabis, and she is exceptionally knowledgeable and helpful in guiding people to a product that makes good sense for their pets, that is safe and has good efficacy, because the market is so flooded. So it's very difficult for people to figure out how to choose a good product. And there are a lot of products out there that are not so worthy. So that can be an exceptional plant medicine to provide them based on, getting a good quality product can make a difference. And I'll just mention real quick, it can help with, of course, pain and discomfort. It can help with stress and mood support. So there are a lot of, uses for this particular plant medicine. Of course, humans use it all the time too. So that would be a nice collection of things that would really make sense to support, better aging and a better end years of life for a lot of pets.
I love it. Thank you, Dr. Katie. And those are such, go-to, such great anchors. And like we said in the beginning, if we're devoted pet parents, we're going to have our fur friends through their whole life, and there will come a time that they're going to face some of these things, if not obviously their aging process, if not illness along the way. So having a resource like you and having these tips is extremely helpful. Thank you. So now we will come on over to Libby. And Lib, will you please first share a little bit about your work and what you love about you, what you do most? And then what I thought would be great to bring to this conversation today, there's so many things and so many wonderful resources, topics, areas that we could get into. But this one, 3 common misunderstandings that most humans have about loss, whether it's a human, a pet, or anything else. The 43 possible differences. So share with us more.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. It's such an honor to be here because of the work that I do around grief and grief recovery. And really, I'm on a mission. My vision is to teach the world how to grieve better, because I believe that we're such a world that is so attracted to achieving and acquiring, but we have almost zero tools on what to do when we lose those things, and pets being one of the first losses that we might experience. So I work with people one-on-one. I also have an online course, Grieve Better, which we're going to talk a little bit about later, which really shares education, helps to dispel some of the myths that I'm going to share with you, and really normalizes loss. And, the natural normal reaction to any loss is grief. And grief is very much about sometimes the conflicting feelings that we feel around loss. So for example, one of the things, and I just want to give you some stats on why I feel this information is so important and how really embracing loss as a way to fully living has changed my life, so much so that this is what I'm doing, is over half the people in the United States own pets. That's over 162 million dogs, cats, fish, birds, reptiles, and other small animals. Sadly, the life expectancy is around 16 years, which means almost all pet parents will experience pet loss throughout their lifetime. That's over 40 million pet losses around the world each year. And that's 14 million cases in the United States alone. So on average, 3 people are affected by the loss of each pet. So meaning, there's a pet loss, and then that pet is going to impact on average 3 people. And I share this with you because in that normalizing and validating that this loss is not only natural and normal that you experience, that it's also very confusing because of the misinformation just around grief in general. And then adding pet loss into it is like, it's a whole different story. And so some of the misinformation is that, when we have the loss of a pet, or let's say right now you have an aging pet, our friends and our family are ill prepared, just like we are, to deal with loss. So a lot of the information that we'll receive is, well, they live a good life, or think of all the good years that you had with them, or have you thought about getting a new pet? And a lot of this is intellectually accurate and emotionally useless. And so what it can sometimes lead us toward is, I feel like nobody understands me. And, because we're kind of conditioned, especially people who, maybe don't have pets, or I find the people who don't want to talk about your pet loss, it's usually because they've had a loss of a pet. And for them to remember or reflect on that relationship brings them pain. So that you have unresolved grief is if you think back to, a relationship with a pet and it causes discomfort. And So another one of the myths that, not only, what do we try and tell people so that they don't feel bad, is that idea that replacing the loss is going to really fill that void that our relationship with our pet has left. And this is true. So again, how we do and how we navigate pet loss is very much how we navigate all loss, right? So it's like with a relationship, do you just get a new relationship? With a job, do you just get a new job? And so I really just want to invite you today to reflect on whether it's navigating a relationship with an aging pet or the loss of a pet as really a symbolic and an invitation to look at the way that we grieve all losses. And I'm so grateful, I'm seeing the shares that you have in here, and I want to invite you to, if it feels comfortable, to share, whether it's on Facebook or YouTube, because in that normalizing of hearing other people talk about their loss and what they're feeling, it gives us permission to do the same. And so, the whatever you're feeling is really natural and normal. And when we invalidate or minimize what we're feeling, because the other thing in my Grieve Better program, I bring in really education around the nervous system and the brain, and your brain is only as good as your nerves. And so if as a reaction to a loss, we move into that fight, flight, or freeze response. Again, that's also natural and normal, but it can really show us what is our conditioned tendency to, when we're outside of, and this is part of Dan Siegel's work, our window of tolerance. So right now, I would say for us, as a world collectively, we're outside of our window of tolerance, what we can tolerate, information that we can take in, digest and consume, and move about our lives. There's a lot of uncertainty right now. And so it makes perfect sense that not only if there's a recent pet loss, whether it's recent or long ago, if you reflect on it and it brings you discomfort, it's like it happened today. And so I want to encourage you to, first of all, validate, yes, what I'm feeling is natural and normal. And then whether it's here or with a friend that can really hold the space for you and not try to fix you by, it's okay, just get a new one, think of all the good times you had, but just really deeply listen to you. Because when there's a change in a relationship, whether it's with a furry friend or a human friend, or we grieve all relationships we deem emotional. It could be with your barista at your favorite coffee shop that you're not going to anymore. There's the moment there's a change it's like the brain goes into life review. And so often that life review is not about the things that we did, it's about the things that we didn't do or the things that we wish we could have done differently. When, especially when there's a pet that leaves us abruptly, we can feel almost a sense of betrayal, right? Like, you left too soon. What am I supposed to do without you? Especially when this animal has been lovingly looking at you when times are good and when times are challenging. And so it is both complex and beautiful, and it is worth your exploration. So I just want to encourage you to share. And again, be very mindful of who you share with, because if it's a friend or a family member that isn't able to meet their own discomfort, chances are they're not going to be able to meet you in yours, which is another reason I'm inspired to really create this Grieve Better community, which invites us to do that in a safe, supportive way, but then also giving you the tools and the education so you know what's going on in your brain. Like, why do I ruminate? So I teach meditations and mindfulness practices that can help us to really create new neural pathways and move our loss into, like, who am I becoming through caring for my aging pet? Who am I becoming through this loss of a pet? Talk about finding the meaning of life. And I feel like, the animals that come onto this planet are really such a gift to us. And so thank you for letting me share something that is like so incredibly deep and passionate and transformational for me. Yes, loving all of these shares as well.
Yes, I was reading them also. We love to hear your words, everyone, and hear your stories. It's wonderful to read about them, and it's wonderful to, as you read through them, relate and see that you are not alone. And there are so many others that get it, even if it does feel isolating where you're at or with the people that you're around. Maybe there just needed to be another community that you were able to feel more connected to and more understood. And this is it. So we welcome you. We're so glad that you're here. And it reminds me, as you spoke, Lib, that what you said about animals, I know for myself, and I think so many of us on the line would agree, that we get something from this relationship that we get from few, if not any other relationships. And that level of unconditional love, of presence, acceptance, loyalty. Sometimes with our human relationships, we aren't able to have that, or that breaks, and sometimes it's strong, sometimes it's weak. Life changes, we move away, all of those ups and downs occur. However, in most cases, our pets are so close and so present and so willing and connected, and they're the most intimate experience that many of us have in relationship. And so no wonder why it makes us so sad to let that go. No wonder. So, Sarah, I can't wait to listen to what you have to share with us as well. Also, please tell us a little bit about your background, a little nutshell, and what you love about what you do. And then also specifically with the loss of a pet, how to handle the difficult decision of what to do, how to do it, when to do it. That is something that I speak with my clients all the time about, many of them reporting it's the worst moment of their life to even just make the decision. So please share a little bit more with us on that, and then the afterwards, what comes next?
Sure. Thank you, Amanda. So I'm a preacher's kid, Midwestern preacher's kid, who was in love with animals and climbing trees and putting weird things in my pocket that I found in nature. And I used to bring home little critters that I found on the way home from school that had passed on in my lunchbox, much to my mother's dismay. So I think, this is a lifelong calling, but it took me a long time to believe that I could do it professionally, and it was a real job, right? So I ended up going to a seminary, which I now teach at, and I know Amanda's going to post a link. I'm doing a full-day workshop on this type of content, animal loss, in October. So I'll be brief on a couple of the topics that Amanda talked about today, but I wanted to start. When you ask me, why do I love what I do? I think I'm going to show you. I want to honor all of the things that I've seen in the chat. I want to honor Libby's story of her dogs, of all of these things that are kind of in the air right now. And so I want to ask if you would all just take a deep breath with me. And I want to offer just a little blessing for the animals that are not with us right now, the animals that we miss dearly. Just a few words, okay? And bring that animal to mind. Deep peace of the running wave to you. Deep peace of the flowing air to you, dear one. Deep peace of the quiet earth to you. Deep peace of the shining stars to you. And deep peace of infinite peace to you, my animal companion. Thank you. That's why I love what I do. This is a space where we can honor those lives, right? Amazing. And it's very difficult, as Amanda said, to make those decisions. Oh, it's horrible, right? I think that's the first thing that we have to be able to say is, it's horrible, it stinks. I could use some other really fancy language, but this is a family show. So I'm going to keep myself safe on that. So I think one important thing is to know the options beforehand, right? You have Google. God gave us Google. So find out different things. There are pet hospice options. There are alternatives to euthanasia. There are animal chaplains to support you. There is green pet burial, which is awesome. All sorts of new, different ways of dealing with animal loss, of making decisions. There's so much out there, and Amanda will give you a link to my website. I'm working on a new book on this topic, and I'm giving anyone a free chapter. Review. So there's some info in there about how do we make these decisions. And I want you all to remember that it's a matter of the heart, not a matter of the mind. So we get all the info, right? We get all the info beforehand, and then we let it stew, and we have to go to this place, whether it's through our spiritual practice of meditation or yoga or silent time in the woods or prayer or whatever it is that we do, right? Whatever it is that we do, to make those decisions from here and not from a place of what someone else told me I am supposed to feel, what someone else told me I am supposed to do, what someone else told me I'm supposed to think, right? Libby talked about that unhelpful language of, it's just a dog. It's just a cat. It's just a fish. It's not, no, it's not just a something. It's a dear, dear, dear being to me, right? So honoring that and our process is important. And the third thing I would say about it is enlist help, right? As Libby said, we don't need to be grieving alone. We don't also need to be making these decisions alone, right? So speak with your vet, speak with an animal chaplain, speak with someone in your spiritual community. Again, someone who is an animal lover, right? So we need to have lots of animal lovers nearby so that when we need them, we can use them. They can help us. We can figure these things out. There are Facebook groups for animal loss. You can look those up. There's also APLB, the Association for Pet Loss and Bereavement, which can be helpful too, right? So there's a lot of different resources for making those decisions. And then afterwards, there's a body, right? Let's just say that there's a body. And depending on what state we're in, there are different options for what we can do with that body. And depending on what our vet does, there are different options. But we need to remember that there's a body to be honored. There's kind of an interesting little thing about cremation going on right now. Now I have a few little cremains in my home, but I have switched to green pet burial because I found out that cremation produces an average of 535 pounds of carbon dioxide, right? So it's not an environmentally friendly option. And so there are some other things that we can do if we're earth warriors, right? If we're pet lovers and earth warriors, we need to look at some of these other options. Then honor the relationship, ritualize it, memorialize it. Have a furry wake with your friends, get together and share amazing stories of all the really weird things your pet did, the crazy stuff that you haven't wanted to talk about, the funny stuff, the dragging the stuff through your house while you were on a Zoom meeting with your boss, right? All of those things. We want to live into those. We want their lives to continue. Self-created rituals. I love flying wish paper. Go outside with flying wish paper. Put your thoughts into that. Let that go. Create a love altar in your yard. Where you can go and you can, especially if you don't have your cremains, right? Is there a space that you can remember that pet and go to that has things that remind you of them? You can still spend time with your pet when they're gone, right? We know this, right? It is not crazy to talk to your pet when it's gone. It's love. It's the expression of love. You can write a letter to your pet of the things that you missed saying while they were alive, right? You can put that there at that space. Importance of forgiveness. I don't have time to go into that piece of it, but if you pick up the chapter of the book, sometimes we need to work on whether we're able to forgive ourselves, pets, or our vets, people in cars who might have injured our animals, right? We get angry at people and not always founded, right? But we want to lay the blame somewhere. And how do we work with forgiveness? How do we replace a loss in a healthy way? Meditation, yoga, not another furry being in 24 hours, okay? Those type of things. And so there's a couple of resources. I know I've got to wrap so we have time for questions, and I could go on forever with all of you lovely folks talking about animals. But there's two books I want to recommend. One is Blessing the Animals. This is full of wonderful, as Amanda noted, I'm a spiritual rebel, so I'm not a particular religion. I pull from all of them. And so does this book, all sorts of prayers and different words that can be helpful. Sometimes we're at a loss for words. Also, whoa, here we go. Peace to All Beings. This is by Judy Carmen. This is chock full of awesome stuff. Yeah, there's some Rumi in there for you Rumi lovers, right? There's some all sorts of stuff, all the wise sages in their words. When words fail us, other words about animals specifically, right? And about loss and love and life can help. And then Amanda will put up my site, modernreverend.com, so you can check that out and check me out in the workshop. And that's it, Amanda. Back over to you.
Well, that's so beautiful, Sarah. Thank you for your heart, your share, and such good ideas. You know, I love when we're able to really give some tangible ways that we can move forward. It brings my mind to what I will often share with my clients too as I work. Let me just turn that ticker off. As I work with them and their animal, anytime in your animal's life really, but especially toward the time in which you know they're going to depart, is spend more time with their spirit. And I know that sounds kind of funny, but we're very accustomed and connected, even attached to their physical body and their fur and the way they smell and their kisses and all those wonderful things. Yet, spending more time communing with their soul now is the best thing that you can do, because when that physical body leaves, you will still have that relationship there. So how do you do that? You do that with what Sarah just mentioned. You do that with meditations especially. You can do that without meditation and just with your intention. But meditation gives you some time to sit with that being, to sit with their soul. Your eyes are closed. You're detached from the senses that bring you into this physical realm. And instead, you're in that spiritual realm. And in that space, you can play, you can be together, you can talk, you can merge. And then when you come out of that space, you have that deeper bond. So a way that we, Sama Dog, has decided to help and support, a tool we can give you, our meditations. We make a new one every week. They're free to our community. You can go to samadog.com/join us. I'll put the link and you'll start getting meditations every week. We're really mindful about writing, recording, producing these so that they're as touching, special, and helpful as possible. So that's a great place to start. While I'm at it, I do want to share some resources from each of our speakers, and then we'll take some of your questions, giving you also some time to be able to do that. Let me just look back over there. Yeah, put your questions in. If you have anything to ask of these ladies or any stories that you'd like to share, we'd love to hear, as we mentioned. So Dr. Katie Kangas can be reached and connected with, and you can have a session with her virtually if you're not in the San Diego area, and even if you were, due to our current circumstances, she needs to go online anyways. And so Zoom and phone consultations are available. You can find more about that at INT Vet Care. I will, again, post the links. I won't keep saying that. Just know that I'll post all the links. And then Libby, as she mentioned, she has some awesome programming. She's created also a free download for our audience. So you can get this free download called Your Guide to Pet Loss. How awesome is that? You can get it right now as soon as the show's over. Also, her brand new program, Grieve Better Online, starts August 17th. So you can find out more at her website, which is Libby, CLIBBYC.com/grieve-pets-better. So you will be able to click on that soon. And Sarah has an upcoming workshop that she mentioned. It's called Animals, the Planet, and Us, Creating Spiritual Connections for Thriving. Isn't that awesome? In conjunction with One Spirit Learning Alliance. It's available on Zoom from anywhere in the world. It is on Saturday, October 3rd. So more information, a video detailing the workshop, and registration information can be found at modernreverend.com. That's where everything about Sarah and her work can be. And then lastly, Sama Dog has our foundational course coming up where we really tie together body, mind, and spirit. It's the foundation of Ayurveda. If you have no idea what that is, then you will learn if you were to take this course or just hang out with Sama Dog a little longer. We start on September 7th. It's a 3-week course, and you can find out more at ayurvedafordogs.com or on the Sama Dog website. So ladies, let's take some comments, questions, read some stories. If there's anything else any of you would like to share, contribute, just unmute and go ahead.
Yeah, Amanda, I wanted to,
go ahead.
Olivia was going to put up one of my other favorite books. I just saw it for just a second. I did want to mention, because it was in the post, about aquamation. That's something to Google, folks. It's cremation with water instead of fire. So that is something, when you're getting your information together about the afterwards, that's worth taking a look at.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I hadn't heard of that before.
Amanda, somebody locally in our area does that, Dr. Christy Freeman.
Oh.
We can post gracefuldeparture.com, but I'll give you her information. You can post as well. So thank you for that, Sarah.
And I want to share, I feel like Sarah and I are on the same page on so many things, and I'm so excited to be introduced to Sarah and Dr. Katie. Oh my gosh. So this is amazing. So the method that I initially was trained in was the grief recovery method, which to me was like my first understanding of like the practical application of grief. Because as Sarah mentioned, a lot of times with loss, it's a problem we want to fix with our heads, but it's not a head thing, it's a heart thing. So the honoring, and you'll find this in the download that I have for you, but different ways that you can really honor the memory of your pet. And a lot of that comes from, we're left with this emotional incompleteness as a result of the relationship. So delivering those undelivered communications, whether it's, Sarah mentioned, through a letter, and these can be like, I hated when you grabbed my socks and did unspeakable acts to them. And I forgive you so that I can be free. So it's like, it's bringing in these undelivered communications along with forgiveness. And it is, again, it's like, from a mental perspective, you're like, how does that work? It doesn't work until you do it. So it's like a lot of these things, as we move through loss and as we move through caring for our aging pets, like, you can't anticipate how you're going to feel in the future. You just be present with what is in the moment. And so that's what I want to share with you. And this book has been such a valuable resource and guide. And again, I'm blown away by what everyone has shared on here, what you have shared on Facebook and YouTube. And I just think it's such a powerful coming together. So thank you, Sama Dog, and thank you, Amanda.
Thank you all so much too. And your beautiful hearts, and your work is absolutely necessary and a gift and a treasure, and coming through souls that are so aligned dharmically to this, like are supposed to be here. That's your gift to give to the world. It's very special. We feel it. I wanted to take this question from, oops, I clicked on the wrong one, but Cindy shared, this isn't a question, this is a comment, but it's very sweet. Having been the mama to a tribe of 6 dogs a year ago, losing my most favorite, precious, and semi-leader of the pack, Pearl, I do have her creation remains in a very beautiful honoring spot, but I also purchased little silver vials to put cremation remains in, and I put them on the collars of her remaining siblings and tribe members. Wow. So when they run around, my sweet Pearl runs around with them. Oh, Cindy, you're going to get me crying again. That's beautiful. Really beautiful. So here's a sweet question. How do you all honor your lost pets? I donate to Animal Rescue in their memory. Any other suggestions? Ladies, any ideas?
I do the same as Mary does. I do a lot of donating in pets' names, and also I pick animals at other organizations to sponsor. So we have a whole bunch of 3-legged cats in Rome that we're sponsoring right now, and some dogs with wheelchairs in the US, and some farm animals too. So I think being able to have that kind of connection, right, for those of us who think about life after death, and perhaps my animal and this animal are connected. I think that's a beautiful way, Mary. Thanks for adding that to the conversation.
I have done the same. Similar is we had our beloved left us physically a couple of years ago, and he came from the Philippines. And so I sponsor a dog in the Philippines at the rescue there, just to tie back to his roots and feel like I have that connection. Another thing that I do with Pepper in mind is he loved the beach. So when I go down to the beach, I'll lay down and I'll just place my hands on my heart like he would be laying with me, and I'll just meditate with him again, because I don't physically need him to be there to be able to have that experience.
I think that's one of the important things too, Amanda, that we're bringing up here, is that connection is not, it's different than the body connection. It's different than the fur. It's different than the fuzz. It's different than the petting. And we have access to that connection all the time. My meditation is very chattery. I have maybe 42 animals that appear while I meditate. And why not? And why not, right? As you mentioned, I bury a lot of roadkill as well, right? So they show up for meditation. And, we have access to these animals. So we sometimes think about honoring as a one-time thing. It's a funeral, or it's a memorial service, or it's a something. But honoring can be through the rest of our lives.
Yes. Yes. And it should. Not only can it be, but it should be. Because otherwise, that's what the loss, that's the loss, that is lost, but it doesn't have to be.
I still talk to a lot of my pets too, in or out of meditation, or when I'm in nature or circumstances where I remember them and times that I spent with them, and I send them silent messages, and sometimes have a little tear or a big beautiful smile, or both. And my dog Asti, who many people who have heard me speak before know that she was my pathway into doing holistic medicine. And of course, I have her portrait on my desk at work and thank her all the time for leading me to do what I do. And then I have her portrait in my office too, so that she can greet, it's actually right where the 2 exam rooms are, so she can greet all the incoming pets. So that's a nice honor too. So
and
thank you.
To what Dr. Katie was talking about, and then also Sarah, is, I hope that we all leave this time together recognizing that while the physical relationship may end, the emotional relationship doesn't, and it doesn't have to. And it's like, going to, the spirit in me honors the spirit within you. And as Amanda was mentioning, it's like, if it was an experience you had in your life, it belongs. And I think one of the best ways that we can really honor, as when, if there's a memory that surfaces, or I was working with a client where at 5 o'clock every day, she would walk her dog, and now there's, this void that is felt at 5 o'clock, and she would try and keep herself busy or distract herself from feeling any feelings of discomfort. And now what she's leaning into is the depth of feeling that's been created by that, and sitting with it as an honoring of the relationship, the physical relationship that they had, and just giving herself permission to feel in that moment. Because I really do believe animals are the best way that we can get better at feeling, the good, the bad, everything in between. And that's what I think it means to be a human, right? We have this capacity to feel this whole myriad of emotions. And thank you, animals, for giving us really a pathway in to do that even deeper.
Perfect final words, Libby. Thank you so much. Really perfect. Well said. Thank you all, Dr. Katie, Sarah, Libby. Thank you all that are on the line with us. We are with you. We're here to support you. All of our resources will be shared. And most importantly, our hearts are there with you, and we get it. We feel you. You're not alone. You're never alone. So come back to this community. Whether you have fur friends in your life now or not, come back to this community. It's obviously very loving and very open and accepting. And I think that you'll find always a warm place here with our hearts and yours. So we hope to stay connected and you enjoy all of the continuation that we have provided for you. And please let us know how we can support you further. Let me just make sure there's nothing to resolve here. Okay, very good. Thank you all. Have a wonderful rest of your time, your weekend, and namaste.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Amanda. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Dr. Katie.